Hey there, and welcome back to my channel. This is Allison from Little Paper Crown, and I wanted to share with you a very beginning reading lesson that we did when Finn turned 6. He turned 6 in the middle of our kindergarten year, so that was a good time for formal lessons. We had done some letter recognition prior to this. He really wasn't interested in it until we did B is for Breakdancing Bear, and I've got a video on that on my channel. I'm just going to go over real quickly kind of the basis for how I learned to teach this, and then I will get right into the lesson. So this is prior to anything we read in here, the McGuffey's primer, or any other readers that we had. I have a video on how we use this as our language arts curriculum. If you'd like to see that, just visit my channel. The basis for me informing myself about how to teach reading came from Ruth Beachick's A Home Start in Reading. That's where I started. She suggests starting with letter sounds as opposed to the letter names, because as far as reading, they need the sounds more than they need knowing that it's an S. They need to know it's an actual S sound or a D sound, that kind of thing, instead of it's a D, it's a B, because you know they mix up B's, D's, P's, and Q's for a long time, and that's normal. So this was kind of where I started. And then I informed myself further with the reading portion of home education. I have not read this entire book. I've only read the portions as I've needed them, as they've come up in our instruction. And then this was the actual teacher's guide for our primer that we use at the moment. However, it also has a lot of extra lessons that you could apply to any book as far as how to go beyond what I'm going to show you today into all the way up to this kind of reading, which is more involved, as you can see. Okay, so this also has a history of folk tales and fairy tales, if that's something that interests you. Okay, so let's get right into how I did this. So the first thing I did was ask him what he wanted to learn to read, what word. And he is obsessed with horses, so the first thing he said was horse. And I didn't worry about the fact that this is a very complicated word as far as one of your first words. It was interest-led. So I showed him that this is how you spell horse. And then I just very matter-of-factly said, you know, let's go over each of the sounds in horse. And I said, or, and I just briefly explained, O-R says or. Or, what sound does S make? And he said, S. And I said, okay, or, S. And the E is silent. And that's all I said. I didn't go into a long explanation of silent E. We had not done any of that before. I just wanted him to kind of get the basic idea of, you know, this is an animal that he loves. He wanted to know how to read it, so I showed him how, and then we moved into this next portion. So I picked a word he liked first. That was first and foremost. And then I said, okay, I'm going to show you some other words. And I said, this is a, and this is t, at, as in we are at home. We are at the table. You sound it out. And he took his finger and he said, at. We learned that method of saying each sound and then dragging our finger across from 100 easy lessons to teach your kid to read. I can do a whole separate video on how I use that. I didn't use it with the script and all that. I just used it for learning how to say the sounds fast and slow. Okay, so we've been doing that a little bit in morning time. I guess I should back up and say that. But this was our first sit down, let's do learning how to sound out words kind of thing. Okay, so then I said, all right, add a C to that, or a K. What does that say now? And he said, K, at, cat. He picked that up very quickly. And then we just went through that with a couple of other letters, just kind of giving him the concept of how blending the sounds together worked. Moving from a sound like a to putting it with other sounds, at, hat. Okay, so then after that, because I knew what we were doing next was the Rod and Staff first grade reader. This was last year during kindergarten, middle kindergarten, but he was 6. So I spelled this. Actually, this has been so long ago. I can't remember if he asked to spell dog or if I put this in front of him. It doesn't matter. This is the next word that we did. So I said, okay, let's sound this out. D-O-G, dog, dog. And he was engaged the whole time we were doing this. I was kind of surprised, I guess because it was new to him. And I said, wonder what would happen if you switched G and D. What does that say? Because this was the first word in his Rod and Staff reader, which we were using in kindergarten. So he sounded out G-A-D, God. And then I said, okay, switch it back again. And what does it say now? dog. We did this back and forth for a good 5 minutes or something, and he was laughing. So I don't know why he found that so funny. But then I said, why don't you put some other letters with it and see what you can come up with? And he might have done this, or I might have said, okay, what about, let's switch the E or the O with an E and the H with a P, peg. And then I just kept kind of rearranging the words. So then maybe we're going to do, okay, well, let's switch to an N. And then we sounded out pen. And then we might have gone back and said, okay, switch that out for a D, and it's den. A lot of what we did was just playing with the letters. Both my kids really enjoy play, but my son in particular is very heavy in play-based learning. So a lot of what we did in the beginning was just playing with these letters. And that would have been the whole lesson. It probably in total maybe took 10 or 15 minutes. As soon as I could tell like he's getting tired or I was done creating words for him, you know, we'd done every word that you could, then we just stopped the lesson. And we might do this for a couple days in a row and then mix in the other things that we were doing with whatever reader that we had. But that's basically where we started. It was really the most simple thing. I had really worked up in my mind that it was going to be super hard, and I didn't feel like I had it, you know, as far as understanding how to teach reading. But following these methods that were in these books really helped me flesh out, and then to practice with him and actually see that it worked was amazing. So anyway, he is now where he can read. So that was last year. He is on this page at the filming of this video. He is on this page in his primer, and he is reading the word gingerbread. So just to give any of you moms encouragement or hope out there, it doesn't happen overnight, but it will feel like it happened overnight if you just take your time, go through the necessary steps of setting that foundation for them to understand the process of reading before you try to worry about, okay, let's hurry up and get them through this reader or this level of this reader, or they need to read this many books by the end of kindergarten or first grade. Don't worry about all that stuff. You start with the process, trust the process, follow through with it, and you will see amazing fruit. That has been the case in our house. So I hope this video has been helpful. If you would like to see any other aspects of reading, language arts, things like that, check out my channel for other things that I've talked about in the past, and I will see you in my next video.